So as Gavin said, we are the group doing diversity within surf lifesaving, and just to start off, we'd like to start the karakia. So the words will be up on the slides, so if you feel like joining in, please do. Otherwise, we'll be leading it. So if everyone can get to, please. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kine ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai. E ni ahi ana te atakura, e tia, e huka, e hauhu, ti hei maui roa.
Cool, thanks for that. So we'll just do a quick team introduction. So my name's Jadu Alpington. I'm from Tikahi Bay. I've been a lifeguard down there for about 7 years now.
Kia ora everyone, I'm Taylor. I'm from the Rarotonga Surf Lifesaving Club in the top of the south. And I've been involved in surf lifesaving for about 11 years now.
Yeah, I'm Gabriel, so I've been involved for about the last 10 years, and I'm from Manu Surf Lifesaving Club.
And I'm Annalise. I'm from Tyro Surf Lifesaving Club. Cool. So today we're presenting on the importance of increasing ethnic diversity in surf lifesaving New Zealand. We have been working on this issue since mid-2019, however we are increasingly aware that there is a recent global movement happening. We are very pleased to be able to use this time to continue to express and validate the need for ethnic diversity in our own organisation.
Cool. So this is just our project timeline on the process we took to undertake our project. So we started off in July at Workshop 1 last year, doing our group formation. We selected our issue and we started to set our goals, so what we wanted to achieve within our project. We then kind of set out our research plan.
Yeah, so then in September of 2019, we started really conducting our research phase. We decided to approach different organisations to see what work they've done on diversity and really get some key learnings from them. And also decided that we needed to survey our membership base. So we started a draft survey at that time.
Yeah, so the third workshop in November, we collated our interviews, so we kind of looked at what we'd learned and put that all together. We started to draft our ethnic survey, so looking at how we could kind of get that out to people, and we also started to draft our recommendations.
Yeah, and then the last step of that was just refining those recommendations down and really looking at the key points that we've been able to identify.
Cool, so I kicked things off with our interviews. We all chose, as a group, we chose some organisations that we recognised in the national sector that were kind of leading the change, so you know, the stand on the shoulders of giants kind of thing. So I talked to Kay Ryan from the New Zealand Police. She's not only the Deputy Chief Executive People and Capability, but she is also a Te Tahi Bay clubby and mum. So it was really cool to get to chat to her. She was really keen and she was so excited to hear people within our organisation were looking to grow the diversity within our organisation. So there's a few key points up there from my chat with Kate. One of the biggest things she said was to consider patrol support and other dry roles, because a lot of the people that come from different ethnicities aren't necessarily comfortable with water, and it's something that we can really grow within our organisation to get those people on board, because why can't we utilise the skills those people have in a dry aspect? She also mentioned that we need to set organisational targets. We don't want to be ticking boxes. We're not just setting quotas to meet a number. We need it to be meaningful, and we need to accept that it's going to take a bit of time. Her biggest thing when I asked her what they'd gone through and had learned anything from their own mistakes was to make sure that you don't, by trying to grow ethnic diversity in an organisation, you don't want to leave the middle-aged white population behind pretty much. She said that's something they did wrong in their first kind of attempt to grow their ethnic diversity, and it just didn't work. So we don't need to replace these people, we need everyone's knowledge and everyone's expertise. She told us to look at the whole pipeline, so from junior surf all the way through to our national staff members, and also to consider that, like the police, some of our most vulnerable people often do come from these different ethnicities, so it'd be really awesome if we can better represent them within our organisation.
Cool. So I interviewed Peter Boyd from Ngāti Pro. So Ngāti Pro are a iwi-run surf lifesaving club based in Gisborne. So I can claim Peter is a key leader within their organisation. So according to Peter, Peter said that Ngāti Pro decided to pair with surf lifesaving because it would enable them to better do what they did best. So being in the ocean and in the water was something really important to them. So establishing themselves as a surf club was a way to further this connection. The club was also established in response to the overrepresentation of Māori in statistics related to drowning in New Zealand. Peter was really passionate about how we can promote ethnic diversity within surf lifesaving. He acknowledged that surf is starting to make changes, but he really encourages us to accelerate this and focus on it. He talked about the importance of acknowledging the tanga whenua of Aotearoa. He referred to vast amounts of knowledge relating to our waters that could be really valuable in our work. A key point he also alluded to was the importance of our imagery, so how we portray ourselves to people. So he encouraged surf to review our logos, our values, our methods, staff and facilities and ensure that they reflect the communities that we're serving. So yeah, big thanks to Peter for his knowledge.
So personally, I'm quite inspired by New Zealand's efforts for inclusion and diversity. There's a whole range on their website you can go and look at. I had a meeting with Joanna Harris, who is the Senior Manager of Digital Transformation there. Air New Zealand obviously has a large international Kiwi representation, so it was a great company to look at on seeing how they improved their diversity. I left the meeting with an understanding of two very important implementation steps for a movement like this. The first was to build from the ground up. So we needed to have movement from club members, growth, and we needed traction. On top of this, we needed a steering group. The steering group would form values, purpose, and a reason, and a direction, so that we were going in the same line. Support from the top was incredibly crucial so that our words were then put into action. We have created a recommendation from this interview that we will be discussing later.
Cool. So I work for the Bay of Plenty District Health Board, and I've been able to observe and draw from some of the things that they've been doing to improve diversity within their workspace. So they're quite a large Bay of Plenty based organisation, thousands of employees, and a big part of addressing some of the ethnic inequalities within healthcare is addressing the representation within the healthcare provider. So that's something that's been really clearly acknowledged and can transfer quite easily over to surf lifesaving. So we need to be representing those communities that we serve. One of the key things that they've advocated for in their organisation is a team of people who are dedicated to driving diversity and advocating for improving diversity within the organisation, similar to how NOS has talked about in New Zealand using a steering group. The use of traditional practices is also something that's hugely encouraged within that organisation. So things like porphyry for the new staff and everyone being able to meet the senior staff and meet them. We had an acknowledgement that language is really key for people to both communicate and the way they think. Language is hugely influential over us as people. So, and it's also one of those things that can be exclusionary. So if you come into an environment where you're not used to the language that's spoken, that's immediately something that can set you on the outside of an organisation. So something that healthcare does is attempts to make resources and brochures in both English and Te and also other languages that are relevant. So that's something that we can do, and one of the recommendations we're going to provide a bit further on. And just another one of the things that they put forward as something really key is they have a dedicated ward for Māori patients. So hospitals are traditionally seen as quite a European-centric environment. So creating a dedicated environment that's specifically for Māori was something that they saw as really key and one of those key initiatives that they put forward.
Cool, so we've got a wee interactive activity for you now, guys. So if you do have a handout in front of you, if you turn it over to the back side, not the colourful side, and you have a QR scanner on your phone, you can scan yourself directly to Mentimeter. So what we're going to do here is we are going to collect a little bit of live data on the ethnic makeup of our organisation for the people in this room. So for most modern cell phones, if you hold the camera over it, it should bring up a little URL. If not, then you can go in through your internet browser. So you just go to menti.com and enter the code. People down the back can't see the code, let me know and I can read it out. So,
Make sure you press submit after you've ticked the boxes, and you can tick all that apply.
Yeah, so it's not just one. Tick any that apply, and then you can scroll down and hit the blue submit button.
And it's just the one question.
Just one question, yeah. I think by default, it says go to the next question, but then so we'll just give you a couple minutes to do that, make sure that everyone has had some input.
Yeah, so if you can't see, you might have a title. We've got Māori here in blue, NZ European in pink, Indian, and two other down there.
So across our project, we've tried to be as inclusive as we can when we provide an opportunity for people to give us their voice, but with this software there's only a limited number of options you can put in, so that's why we've got none. Is anyone willing to be brave enough to say that they were the other and let us know what ethnicity you are if you're not included in those ones? Just out of curiosity? Don't have to? Yeah?
I'm Irish.
Awesome. Thank you. Sweet. Has everyone managed to get in? So from this we can see that it's pretty similar spread to what we're going to talk about in a minute, which is the data that we collected from our organisation nationally. So we've got 40 New Zealand Europeans, 6 Māori, 1 Indian and 3 other. Cool. Alright, we'll just jump back into our PowerPoint.
Yeah, so one of the big goals for our project was to reflect the communities that we are serving, which is why we did leverage Statistics New Zealand to showcase a little bit of their data from the 2018 stats. That was the latest redefined. I would like to just note that our data does have a bit more range in ethnicities. I'm not quite too sure why they
Yeah, so these are the only ethnicities that you can choose on the census, and when we heard chat to Rachel Middleton, she suggested that on ours we brought in that scope a little bit to make it a bit more inclusive.
And then just the other quick note is that obviously NZ Census takes a range from hopefully the whole of New Zealand, whereas our sample size was of 136 out of 15,000 members. So it's a very good small indication of what we can find.
Cool, so moving on. So this was our main way of collecting data on what we currently have. So within our organisation, a bit like the body recovery team found, there is a bit of a flaw in the system. We are currently not collecting any compulsory data on the ethnic makeup of our organisation. So we decided we needed a starting point. We needed to know what we look like now. So we sent out a couple of surveys. The first one was the member survey that got sent out via the National Member News. It also went out via a number of different regional and club level Facebook pages and some email chains. The second one we sent out to, thanks to Brad for firing this out for us, was to Surf Lifesaving New Zealand leadership or staff members in a position of regional manager or above. So we had 136 responses to the member survey and 15 responses to the leadership survey, which is actually a pretty good representation of the staff and board.
Cool, so this is just a little regional breakdown of our results. So we had 136 in total, as Taylor said. We had a big chunk from Central Region. And we'd really like to say thank you to everyone who took the time to fill out the survey and leave some comments. That was really helpful, so cheers for that.
Cool, so now having a look at the ethnic makeup of the members. So this is just the data from the member survey. So we can see that, like the people in the room, we are largely New Zealand European, with a smaller but still representative portion of Māori, and then all of the other different, there was about 15 other ethnicities recognised. That was between either 3 people or just 1 person. The leadership graph looked pretty much identical. There was a large portion New Zealand European, roughly the same portion, I think it was about 11% Māori, and then just 1 or 2 other ethnicities recognised in a really small portion.
So this is the language results. As you can see, again, we do have a great range of English, great amount of English-speaking clubbies. Following on from that, we have Māori, French, German, and then Afrikaans and New Zealand Sign Language. We would like to point out that initially we didn't consider New Zealand Sign Language to be part of our survey, however it did come to our attention. It is obviously one of the biggest languages in New Zealand, so we'd love to recommend for Surf Lifesaving New Zealand to use sign language as part of their campaigns in the future.
Cool, so as part of our survey, we provided a box at the end of the survey where we encourage people to give us feedback on how they thought Surf Lifesaving could improve its diversity, essentially. So a couple of those recommendations were first to push the patrol support role. Then there was to have more diverse representation within our advertising, and that's something that I think during our project we've actually seen improve, which is awesome.
Yeah, some other key ideas that came out were to build relationships with local iwi and tangawhino and see what they can offer. It was also to acknowledge the utility of Waitangi, Māori tikanga and Te Ao Māori, so see what they might have to offer for our organisation.
So just on that, there was obviously a massive range. It was really awesome that majority of people did the survey, took the time to actually put something in that kind of open comment box. And there are some raw comments on the back of your handout if you want to have a read of them later if you're interested. They're copied straight out. That's not our wording, it's people that answered the survey.
So there is a lot going on in Surf Lifesaving New Zealand that's already happening with diversity. So we would like to acknowledge the great work that Rajal Middleton, Marketing and Communications Manager, and her dedicated team are already doing. I'm sure you would all be aware of the language weeks that were promoted via our social media forums, as well as there's intentional publicity around diversification of branding and public messages going out right now. So.
Yeah. Another thing that was really cool for us, we as a BP Leaders for Life group attended the Chairs workshop in Wellington last year, and something that was really cool that was brought up there was the idea of diversity. So that was something that was really encouraging for us, having recently started this project, to hear that being voiced at such a high level within surf. And then just the idea that diversity is more than just social media, and it's actually becoming more of a key value within surf, which is really cool to see. And we also see that there's the translation of those safety messages being done, which is awesome.
Cool, so as part of our project, what we wanted to be able to do, while we might not be able to necessarily get these things off the ground or get them actually in the works at the moment, we're just hoping to provide some recommendations to the organisation that hopefully some of the staff members and some of the teams can pick up and maybe run with. So there's 6 recommendations that we're going to talk about. We're just going to go through each of them in a little bit more detail.
Cool, so our first recommendation is celebrating Te Ao Māori, Surf Lifesaving New Zealand. So in the past, surf hasn't been seen as an overly diverse organisation. So during our research, we found that some Māori do not feel like surf is an organisation where they belong or feel really welcome. So the first step we decided to embracing ethnic diversity needs to be about acknowledging the tangata whenua of Aotearoa. We need to ensure that our organisation encourages and welcomes Māori. We think this is about taking small steps to make a big change. So it's about thinking about how you can acknowledge and celebrate Māori culture in surf, from the office to the beach. Simple things like karakia, the way we started our presentation, is a really simple way to use tikanga and acknowledge where we stand. So then we can also get surf to follow up with that, so reinforce these actions by incorporating Te Ao Māori into our media, signage, resources, and much more.
Cool, so the second idea we came up with was something that we've named the Sailrite Campaign. So it's we're hoping it's going to be a video or a series of videos, mainly through social media, plus a supporting static image campaign distributed by the Surf Lifesaving New Zealand channels. So we've got a picture here of kind of an example of what we thought for, this is actually my club, for the kind of Instagram social media static campaign. So it's approaching it in the terms of using the phonetic pronunciation to get it right. So a lot of people look at my club, and I've been guilty of it in the past as well, and you go Rarini, right? With phonetic pronunciation here, we're not hoping to kind of attack the people that maybe we notice don't really say it necessarily correctly. We're just hoping to educate them and give them the opportunity to try and get better if they want to. Right, so Rarini instead of Rarini. What we also came up with after this was, we have a very, very raw, rough video for you that we made, and it's kind of just to give you an idea of what we wanted in terms of the video campaign. In terms of costs and stuff with this, we're hoping massive buy-in from clubs and from members should keep the costs down, but also keep it really real. Please,
Kia ora, and welcome to my beach, Orma, on the beautiful Bay of Plenty.
Kia ora, and welcome to White Bay, home of the Surf Lifesaving Club in the beautiful Marlborough region. draft, but we just wanted to kind of give you an idea of what we wanted. Plus, getting that buy-in from members, makes them included, gives them that overall buy-in, trying to push their own features to kind of build that diversity. Well, my voice starts again.
Alright, so we've mentioned it earlier, but one of the things that has come up a few times both in our consultations with other organisations and feedback from our survey has been the pushing of that patrol support role. So it's seen as a way to encourage people who may not feel confident swimming to become a part of our organisation. So often there's some potential lack of swimming ability in people of diverse ethnicities. So this is a way to encourage them to become a part of our organisation without having that barrier to entry that is the swimming times and the potential lack of knowledge of the ocean, and something that can ease them into the organisation in a way that's much more comfortable. So pushing this role was seen as a key idea that we really want to put forward.
Cool. So our fourth recommendation was a logo review and just a general review of our imagery. So looking at how we can better represent who we are as an organisation as opposed to having 4 white figures in our logo.
Awesome, so the ambassador. So the ambassador role was the idea come up from my chat with Joanna. So basically the idea of this is to grow and steer the traction and movement of increasing diversity in Surf Lifesaving New Zealand. I hope you all think that we do need to increase our diversity in Surf Lifesaving New Zealand. So we do have a bit of a compromise with Surf Lifesaving New Zealand that hopefully you'll agree upon. There's going to be one co-region. They must be passionate about increasing diversity within Surf Lifesaving New Zealand, and we as a team are more than happy to pilot for the first season. From there, it will be promoted as a new job. Therefore, it will have an appropriate job description, it will be prestigious, and it might have some alignment with the Award of Excellence. The compromise is where we don't think that there should be any cost, as we are wanting a movement. We don't think it should be a paid role. However, we do hope that Surf Lifesaving New Zealand would support this idea by covering any cost of accommodation, travel for the ambassadors to meet up and plan and implement procedure, and any food for any events of target customers. So yeah, that is our ambassador role.
Cool, and the final thing that we have looked at and have actually got into place, this was more of a deliverable than a recommendation. It is being held up literally by software technological issues, is we are making, or we have requested that there is a red star or required put next to entering your ethnicity when you fill out the form on the POM, on the POM. So that's for both new members signing up and for existing members. Obviously, the existing members are going to require you to actually get in there and fill it in, because you're not really filling in a new form. So this is actually already in the works. We've spoken to Georgia leading the IT team, and once the software update goes through later in the year, it'll be on there, which is awesome.
So we would just like to say a few thank yous. First to Ruth from BP and her BP team for supporting our entire BP Leaders program. We all think that we have been taught stuff that we're going to take for a whole lifetime. Definitely to our mentors and facilitators, especially Emma, your guidance and your help has really helped our project. And finally to Rachel Middleton, her passion has inspired us to push forward with this project in so many ways, and we can tell you right now that our project wouldn't be half of what it is without her help and dedication.
Any questions? Yes.
I really like the idea of pushing patrol support, but I'm also a little bit conscious that currently we are already starting to see people struggle to hit our 9-minute swim time, and we're certainly noticing people are struggling to hit the advanced guard swim time. How are we going to attract both types of membership, sending the message that you don't have to be a good swimmer to be a lifeguard, but at the same time, we really want good swimmers to be lifeguards?
I think it comes down to, it'll have to be a split marketing campaign. I think, well, you can do the combined one and a split one, but we really, if you try and do them together, you still kind of if they're right next to each other, sorry, the people who you're saying, we don't need you to be able to swim, we know you've got valuable experience in maybe incident management or first aid and stuff, they're going to see, we really want good swimmers still and still kind of be put off by that, so we really just want to focus on getting them into the organisation, and then there's a chance that hopefully once they're in, they might start either learning to swim from the start or trying to pick up their swim if they're close enough, but we're just there rather than just going, oh, I'm still 30 seconds a minute off the swim time, I won't bother joining this year kind of thing. Thank you for your question. Any other questions? Yeah.
Cool project, by the way, really like it. Obviously, being the regional manager of the Eastern region of Untitled Chapter today, it's really relevant, I think, to the whole country actually. But I do wonder, did you kind of drill down into some of the data potentially for our clientele, our patients, our people on the beach, into seeing, I mean, I can see the comparisons between our census, but any comparisons between the diversity and ethnicities that we actually see on the coast and using our beaches and our patrol locations, sort of versus our membership? Was there any of that, like drilling into the incidents and ethnicities?
We didn't essentially look at data into incidents and ethnicities in there. That's a great point though, we will do that now. However, we have had a massive discussion with Rajul going through where, like kind of region or beach by beach, seeing what ethnicities just from observation do hang out on those coastlines. And so we have looked at coming up with projects in the future to tailor to those beaches, whether it be signs in those languages around those beaches. For example, up in Piha, you've got a lot of Asian ethnicities and tourists that come up there, so it would be great if we had like rock danger signs and everything in Cantonese and Mandarin, and that is stuff that Rajul is implementing and working on for the future.
I'll just speak to that as well in the sense that when we started this project, obviously we were all passionate about diversity, and we were like, okay, diversity is like this big, we need to have a project that kind of fits the scope this big. And I definitely remember we talked about that kind of thing, like how much data do we look at, where do we go, and we kind of just had to narrow it down because every time we kind of came to a point we'd go like this again and want more things, and we just had to narrow our scope down a bit. But it is a really good point, like if you wanted to do more targeted campaigns, you look at the kind of populations that are in those stats from our forms.
Oh, very cool. But I mean, you're kind of looking at two things as well. I think, from what I say, you're talking about, you know, growing our membership diversity, but also making sure we target sort of, you know, diverse ethnicities as well. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
and that was actually my second part. Was actually, do you see it as being, you know, global within our organisation or targeted to specific communities? And I think you pretty much answered that because it's definitely combos.
Yes, yeah. As we said, we wanted the clubs to reflect the communities that we serve, and that's both ways. Being able to give something to the community as well as they want to be able to see Surf Lifesaving New Zealand and feel like they have a place or a connection towards it rather than seeing something that they're associated with.
I think some of those key values can be nationwide, but New Zealand is such a diverse place in itself that something that fits up in the far north is not going to fit Christchurch.
Yeah.
Where do you see rainbow inclusion fitting inside your deliverables?
Yeah, so that's what we're talking about. Scope of diversity, you've got gender diversity, you've got sexual diversity, you've got ethnic diversity. There's so much, we just had to kind of narrow our scope because there is room for about 15 other projects under the diversity banner. So obviously, I'm just a plug here, I'm a health teacher, so I'm massive about pushing that kind of sexual diversity, gender diversity, and it's something that I think would be really good for our organisation to look at. We just didn't have the scope to do it in-house.
If we keep that ambassador role going, that's definitely something that us as a team would look into if Surf Lifesaving New Zealand supports it.
On that point, actually, we're pleased to know that we have received funding to look at our volunteer strategy and diversity moving forward over the next 3 years. So that's something that we are going really scratching the surface on that.
It's great to know.
I know you talked about how the scope is so large, but did you consider looking at any of the feeders of how people get into surf lifesaving? Like looking at, you know, the kind of diversity of like swim clubs? Because I know a lot of lifeguards are people who did swimming and convert, and the barriers that are stopping people from getting involved into those. Or did you consider it, or otherwise just an idea?
Great idea. Yeah, it was more along the lines of, that's obviously swimming's not the barrier there, so it doesn't come under our control support, but we just had to kind of think our direction. It would be an awesome add-on to our project.
Yeah, we love that. David?
Well, not so much questions, but like comments. Well done recognising that New Zealand Sign Language even be included in there, even though it's not an ethnic group, it is a cultural group with its own identity and language, and being the third official language of New Zealand as well, needs to be included in there, so great to recognise that, and love the logo.